Hello, beloved.
Welcome to the Sacred Sister podcast,
where we normalize the magic
and sacralize the mundane.
In this podcast, we open up dialogue on metaphysical subjects, self-healing tools, expanding consciousness, and deepening awareness.
To support you in co-creating a life full of healing, meaning, and magic.
I'm Britt, a self-study entrepreneur, spiritual wellness coach, and self-healing song channeler.
And I'm Hannah, an astral researcher, priestess, and inner peace and transformation coach.
And together,
we're here to serve as your Sacred Sister.
Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful, and welcome to another episode of Sacred Sister Podcast. My name is Britt, and before we dive into this episode, I want to ask you, what is the relationship that you have with the thing that a lot of people call a period, your menstrual cycle? How were you initiated into this phase of womanhood, of life, of awakening to the ability to create life within you? Was it a particularly sacred initiation? Was it something that was seen as embarrassing or shameful? We're really eager to open up this dialogue today with none other than Spirit Woman Sisterhood, which is a women's collective made up of Cottrell and Leanna Pareja. Together, they have authored the Blood Book. The subtitle, Honor Your Bleed, Your Cycle is Sacred. So in the episode, we're going to take a look at the system that they have developed and the way that they have learned how to map the moon cycle, map the blood cycle, and it is absolutely incredible. We're very excited to open up this dialogue, and before we do, I just wanted to share some etymology of these words. I always think it's fascinating to really understand the energy that is behind a thought process within the collective by looking up where words or phrases or understandings came from. And upon looking this up, it is quite fascinating. The Greek roots that the word period have translates to peri, which means around, and hodos, which is a going away or a journey. So peri hodos, a going away journey. It's a period of time. And that's how we came to start using the word. And it's interesting because in the Oxford English Dictionary, the definition of period as it would be in menstruation, you know how period and menstruation are synonymous with one another. We can use the words interchangeably. So in the Oxford English Dictionary, using the word period as menstruation is actually a subset of definition 3, which is this: the time during which a disease runs its course. So technically, period as menstruation is classified as a subset of period of disease, which speaks volumes about gender and medicine. Just the fact that that is the energy behind words like menstruation and period, I think gives us a really beautiful passage into thinking of our moon cycle and our moon blood in a really different way. Etymology of menstruation, mensis is the word for month in Latin. So basically, we're going to be talking about really changing mindsets and changing the way that we think about this sacred monthly process in which truly we are able to connect with the source of all creation. For those of you that may not be familiar with what goes on during the monthly blood cycle, basically all throughout the month, your uterine lining is building up in order to receive life-giving semen. And through a process called the ovulation phase is whenever this one egg from your fallopian tube, or sometimes a few eggs, it's sort of debated upon how many eggs are waiting to be fertilized every month. But between 1 and a few eggs are released from the fallopian tubes, coming down through the cervix and waiting to be fertilized, which is why it can be a little danger zone to engage in penetrative intercourse during your ovulation week, because that is when you are seen to be as the most fertile. So truly every month your body is preparing to create life. If the egg does get fertilized, it starts forming into a little baby. And if it doesn't, then it sheds, and that is what your period is. The shedding of extra blood and your uterine lining every single month. What a beautiful miracle. The innate wisdom and intelligence of our bodies is really quite a thing of majesty if you sit and give it the time and space to understand what is happening. So with this being said, we're very excited to open up dialogue with our guests today. And before we get started, I wanted to share a little introduction to how incredible it is that we have these two beautiful, radiant women in our midst today. Ash Cottrell and I go way back. Ash was actually a big initiator for me in my lifetime. And what I mean by that is that in 2015, I very synchronistically was led to meet Ash, and she drove me down to what was going to be the most transformative experience of my life to date. And this whole spiritual awakening process was truly able to be melted into as a direct piece of the compassion, love, and patience that Ash and her husband Matt bestowed upon me. We were in Venice, California, attending Annie Carpenter's 200-hour yoga teacher training, and at the time, I still considered myself a pretty basic person. Basic meaning I was a part of the matrix. I was not awakened to my own spirit. I was not having a lot of meaning or purpose in my life at that time. And numerologically, it was a year 7 for me. 7 is a big year of truth. It can be a big year of tower moments. Tower in the tarot. If you don't know about the tarot and want to know more, we have a whole episode on the tarot and the archetypes within those illustrated messages. And it can be often a big year of challenge. It can be a year of hard truths. And that year I had gotten a DUI and I wasn't able to drive. So had I not gotten my DUI, I would have been able to drive to Venice, California. But since I wasn't, Ash came and picked me up. And I didn't know her. And I met her when I got in the car. And I was very socially anxious, just very competitive with other women, and very judgmental of her expansiveness. She was talking about manifestation and co-creating your own reality and, manifesting abundance, and all of it seemed very woo-woo to me, and I found myself being very judgmental of her. And over the month that we were living together, I really came to see a lot of truth in the things that she was talking about, and I witnessed her manifesting things all the time. I witnessed how not stressed and how just happy she was all the time, and it felt very wild to me. It felt like it was kind of annoying and triggering at first. And at the end of the month, I was fully in a place that said, whatever she's having, I'll have some. I want to know what is going on, because it seemed like she was living in such a magical land that was all her own, that was benefiting her. I mean, it's a massive story. I don't have time to go into all of it right now, but truly her and Matt initiated me into this other place. And I think it's a really nice perspective to have these people that cross into your lives that have so much to teach you, or that have these initiations to give. It's truly where you can see the magic start swirling in this human experience. And it's truly a piece where in the moment you may not really witness it happening, but now that I have years later seen what my life has unfolded into, I can look back on my human experiences and say like, oh wow, this is when this soul contract came into fruition. And she came into my life to play this role, to play this part, to enact this thing, to turn on my mind in this way, to initiate this paradigm shift, which is a shift in belief systems and an opening and an expansion to another aspect of reality that I never knew existed. So really unfolding consciousness. And it's such a hallmarker. It's such a hallmarker for me that now, years later, I have this podcast and we're able to have her on, and she's doing so much great work in the world. And just to know that we have met each other again in this lifetime is truly such a privilege. We are so excited to reveal who is the winner of a copy of the Blood Book. We hosted a flash giveaway on Instagram, and we're going to be announcing the winner. So stay tuned till the end of the episode. So without further ado, let's hop into Hannah's segment where she's going to look at our guests' astrology charts and the way that they influence their current reality and the work they're putting out. She's also going to do a very brief meditation, and then we're going to hop into the episode.
Thank you, Brittany. Wow, so excited to be diving into this interview with Ash and Leanna. I want to share with you a little bit about their astrology. So this is a really fun little segment that we have here in the second season. We want to really open up on the energetic blueprint that we all have within ourselves. And we want to really explore the energetic blueprint of our guests for the podcast to kind of see what kind of archetypes do they have and how are they manifesting themselves into their personal lives. Let's start with Leanna. Leanna is a Pisces sun in the first house, and the Pisces is the archetype of the dreamer and the artist. Through that, she's really in tune with the mysteries of life. So she loves the subtle realms, the emotional realms, the artistic realms. And being in the first house, it really helps her to shine her light in a way that is like finding her unique way of how she sees those mysteries. And then with the moon in Gemini, she's a messenger, right? This is the archetype of the messenger. She's a student. She loves to learn. She loves to soak in new knowledge. And especially in regards to everything fourth house related, which is home, family, land, the divine feminine, Mother Earth, Mother Goddess, like all of these women, female, mother, problems, issues, mysteries, you know, like really learning everything about this. And then the rising sign, her rising sign is in Aquarius. It's also conjunct Mercury. Again, we have this archetype of the messenger and the student here. And with Aquarius archetype is the rebel. So Leanna is able to create a new paradigm shift. She's able to look at something old, see it from a new perspective, seeing things from outside of the box, outside of the current system. And with her Uranus, which is her chart ruler, being in her 10th house, it is about letting go of limiting borders, structures in society, and finding new ways, pioneering into new realms of creating a new system, new structures that work for this new evolution of humanity that we're going through. So we see she has the dreamer, the messenger, and the rebel archetype very strongly, and really allowing herself to learn and dive deep into the mysteries of life to create a paradigm shift and create new structures in this world. This is what she did with her blood book in cooperation with Ashley. And Ashley's astrology is super interesting as well. Ashley's sun is in Libra in the 7th house, which is the archetype of the lover. So Ashley shines her light the brightest when she is in union with another. So in this case, she's in union with Leanna, her sacred sister, and they both created the blood book together. And we'll be talking about this in this episode. And Ashley is also a part of the yoga couple with her lover, Matt. And there again, she's never part of a union. And this is really where Ashley's sun shines the brightest. She has amazing ability to bring people together and to find common ground with people. Her moon is in Capricorn in the 10th house. This is the archetype of the boss. So on one hand, she's the lover. On the other hand, she's the boss. So she has the ability to put hard work, discipline, focus in whatever she wants to achieve. She's ambitious. She doesn't shy away from hard work and putting in the hustle if it's necessary. And she's also really good at like managing people, and she's good at, just standing in the public eye in general. So her rising sign is in Pisces. So here we have the combination to Leanna's sun in Pisces. So here is also a dreamer archetype there. So she is naturally tuned into the mystical realm, into the artistic dreaming world, but also she has it conjunct her Mars, which is the archetype of the warrior. So she also has a very warrior-like attitude, or she's athletic, she's strong, she's courageous and confident. So what that created, this confidence that Ashley has, and her sun is actually conjunct Leanna's Pluto, Saturn, Mars, and Pallas, Athena, which means that Ashley coming into Leanna's life really helped Leanna to rebirth herself, transform herself into stepping into leadership and really embracing her authority that she has and feeling more confident and courageous because of that. And Leanna influencing Ashley in a way that Leanna's sun is conjunct Ashley's north node in Pisces. So Leanna is helping Ashley to tune more into the mysteries of life and tune more into the spiritual side. And Leanna's moon is also conjunct Ashley's Jupiter in Gemini. So both of them love to learn and love to see new perspectives on things, and they have an amazing communication between the two. So they are both students and teachers of each other. It is absolutely beautiful. And so if we look into the composite chart of both of them, the composite chart is when we take Leanna's chart and Ashley's chart and put them on top of each other and basically find the middle point, the midpoints between each of the planets. We receive the composite sun in Capricorn in the 10th house. So again, we have the boss archetype here. And it's conjunct Mars and conjunct Neptune. So we have the warrior archetype and the dreamer archetype. So Leanna and Ash together are spiritual warrior boss ladies who are here to shift our perceptions and bring more magic into our lives. Here we go. Before we're going to start and hop into our interview, let's dive into the meditation. Just a really, really quick one. Start doing that. And now, if you haven't already, find a comfortable seat. Take this time to allow yourself to relax. Let's take a deep breath in together. And out. Letting go of the day. Let's take another deep breath in through the nose. And sigh out through the mouth. And one more time. Deep breath in, even deeper than before. Hold it. And sigh out. Letting go. Let yourself sink deeply into the chair. or bed, wherever you're seated. And then now allow your breath to find a comfortable rhythm. Close your eyes if you haven't already. And tune into the space between your eyebrows. The space of your third eye. Your inner eye. That helps you see things from a different perspective. That helps you connect with your spirit and soul. The part inside of you that is eternal. The part inside of you that knows that life is magical. That life is playful. And life is mysterious. That part of you that knows that there is so much more to life than you think there is. That knows that you are a powerful being and that your body holds magic. Take this time to soak in the magic of your life. To just be for a moment. There's nothing you have to do. Then be. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Tune into the seasons of your life, the cycle of life that goes on and on eternally. Let's take a deep breath in together and sigh out. Beautiful. And now that you are tuned into your own inner mystery, let's dive into this interview about the magic of our moon blood. Enjoy.
Oh, sacred sister, a kindred flame, may we light one another. From the ashes rise, oh, we rise, oh, again.
Yay! So welcome to the Sacred Sister podcast, ladies.
We have Ash.
Thank you so much.
We have Ash and Leanna here as our second interviewees for season 2, and we are so blessed to sit and open deeper dialogue. And I would just love if you two could introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, my name is Leanna, and I feel, first off, I just want to say I'm so honored to be here doing this with you ladies. I love the work that you're doing, and I feel like it's just so in alignment with what we're creating. So we just finished writing a book called The Blood Book, where we're talking about honoring women's cyclical nature, and we're teaching women about that because so many women, and I didn't even have this understanding until 6-7 years ago myself, but most of us don't even know that we're cyclical. We just know that we have a period once a month. So that's the work that I've been doing here. And yeah, I live in Hawaii, and kind of the dream life. And then Ashley, which she'll introduce herself, is one of my best friends in the whole world, and we're just creating that together. So
Yeah, hi, I'm Ashley, and I'm so excited to be here. Me and Brittany actually go way back, and it's just so serendipitous to be here now talking to her on her podcast. And Liana actually taught me about honoring my cycle and creating a life that was in alignment with being a cyclical being, honoring that I menstruate and becoming more connected to the divine feminine in me, which I feel like I didn't really have a connection with because we live in a world that is just driven by a patriarchy, and having those masculine kick-ass qualities are just so celebrated. So I felt like I was definitely out of touch with the more receiving, gentle, innate parts of me. And Leanna has really helped me to develop a relationship with that. So it's very cool to be here now with the Blood Book published. And this is our very first interview about the Blood Book.
yay!
Oh, is it really?
So exciting.
So
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you for already,
Yeah.
thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your story already a little bit about it, because we're really interested, like, what inspired you to write that Blood Book?
Well, it's a combination. Actually, Ashley is the one who was like, Leanna, you need to write this stuff down, because we were just talking about being women, and I was like, oh, you're bleeding? Let me take care of you and let me honor you right now. And if you want to add.
Yeah, really, she's downplaying this. She's being so humble. So Leanna she is the spirit woman. She lives her whole life in alignment with her cycle. And she's got a 2-acre property here in Hawaii. And I moved onto the property and was having my period like we all do, and thought nothing of it, and was carrying on with my life. And Leanna stopped everything. She stopped work. She made me go lay down in bed. She brought me a period basket, or a blood basket, filled with like cacao and herbs and sage, and draped a red scarf over me and lit sage and incense, and turned my room into this amazing
Blood haven.
blood sanctuary. And I was brought to tears because I had never had anybody treat me food. She was like, you don't need to get out of bed. I'm going to bring you breakfast on a tray with breakfast on it. And she took care of me on my period. And I mean, I didn't even know that I had never even connected to the things I felt on my period, because I would just take Advil and just go to work. And she was like, don't take any painkillers, just let yourself feel what you feel when you bleed. And here's a journal the things that come up for you while you bleed. And I was so blown away by her that I asked her to teach me how she tracks her cycle and what it means to track your cycle, because it's so much more than your period. And that turned into the Blood Book.
Yeah, that's how that happened. So I had her encouragement, which was wonderful. And I did not grow up this way at all. I am a researcher and a traveler, and I've just kind of explored the world, and I've been really blessed to be able to have all these different interactions with these more tribal women. And then I would come across different books that were, from some shamans in South America. And as I started to collect all this information, I was like, why aren't we talking about this? Like, why aren't we acknowledging how sacred and powerful it is to bleed each month? And then science, just in the last, 10 years, has really started to be like, oh, and actually as a woman, each week of your month-long cycle, you're going through this new phase and your body chemically is changing every single month. And so as I started to collect that kind of information, it just was like, oh, well, no wonder we have these different symptoms when we're in our premenstrual phase, for example, because certain chemicals have left the building and other chemicals have introduced themselves. And so we feel our whole life experience has changed. And so being able to go with that and identify it, then you can basically map out a plan for your life and understand yourself when you're feeling more emotional, or you're feeling like supercharged, or super energetic, or not energetic at all. Like, you can actually predict, as you start to understand your cycle throughout the month, you can predict how you're going to feel, and then kind of schedule around how you're going to be on a certain day. And that's what we talk about in the book and break that down.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that is so beautiful. I love that. Thank you for explaining all of that. And I feel like what I do is moon manifesting, which is so similar to it because, with the new moon and first quarter and full moon and last quarter, and you can literally transfer that to our own blood moon cycle. And it is such a different way of feeling when you allow yourself to go through these cycles and become aware of these, the cyclical nature of ourselves as women. And I read a book about, it's called Do Less by Kate Northrup. And she writes in there too about the different cycles that we're going through. And she says that men are actually going through a 24-hour cycle.
24-hour cycle, yes. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that fascinating? And
chemically, everything changes for them with it.
Yeah. And so, even, just as you said, with the patriarchy, our whole society is built around that 24-hour cycle. Like, every day we got to go to work or do the same stuff over and over again. And then we as women, we're trying to, adjust to that cycle and get so exhausted from it. But, knowing our own inner cycle makes such a big difference.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, and there's a reason. There's a reason why cultures throughout the ages have associated the masculine with the sun, which is every single day, going through the same cycle every single day. And then the moon, she is associated with the feminine and is going through her own monthly lunar change. And that's, it's just completely in alignment with how we are actually physically as women and as men, in association with the sun. So yeah, it's fascinating.
I'm so excited to continue hearing how you, Leanna, came to understand yourself so fully like this and just sort of developed, it seems like, the system based on pieces of information and different little lineages of tradition that you picked up along your path on your travels and things. Could you go a little bit more into how this all started coming into your life?
Yeah. Well, it kind of started because I had a company and I was, this a little while ago, I was on birth control and I was the senior vice president of this company and I was just working like crazy. I was completely in the patriarchy in every single way. And I wanted to be just a kick-ass woman who was like, yeah, I've got this. Anything a man can do, I can do just as good or better. That was kind of my attitude in life. And then when I was on birth control, my whole world started becoming really chaotic. And I just started feeling like I didn't have any control over any emotions that I would have that would just come out of nowhere. And I would really overreact. Something would happen, I would overreact. And then 2 minutes later, I was like, why was I so upset about that? And I had no idea. So then I got off birth control. And that was kind of the beginning of my process of reconnecting with what it means to be feminine, because I really had no concept of that. Other than the fact that I was, in fact, a woman, I was not connected either at all. It was just no, this is a man's world. And so if you want to keep up, you got to act like a man. And I mean, I was the same thing. Like I used to take so many Advil a day when I was bleeding because I had to keep up. You know, you can't just lay down and bleed. You have to pretend like you're not bleeding. Mm-hmm. And so I started to just research. I'm a major history buff. And so I think that kind of in school, that was like my main subject that I studied. And there's a lot of, well, all of history has pretty much been written by men. And there's the reason why it's called His Story. And I started to find the like nooks and crannies where I could of things that were actually kept somehow through the ages by women. And so in our book, that's kind of what we're doing. We're with all the things that I have kind of gleaned along the way, we're reintroducing her story and understanding what it is, what it actually means to be a woman. And we are just so different, and it's so beautiful. And instead of just honoring or acknowledging the external qualities that we have that are an innate part of us, it's about now honoring the internal qualities, because that is what makes us different. It really is.
And one of the things that Leanna started implementing that I found so fascinating that she taught me and is in the blood book is that there were so many tribes that actually honored women for menstruating and for being more in tune and connected to divine intuition and inspiration. And they would go to the women when they were bleeding and ask them for advice or to pray for them, because they knew that when a woman was bleeding, that she was tapped into, source consciousness. And that was the time that she had the magic, in a sense. And women would go into these like huts where they would take care of each other. So the women who were menstruating would be kind of doted on by the other women in the tribe who weren't menstruating, and they would be allowed to rest and to bleed and to pray and to sing and to dance and to connect with the earth and be part of that cosmic dance of nature. They were allowed to be that. And I think what was so interesting about Leanna is that she was like, I'm going to do that for myself. I'm going to allow myself to be a part of that cosmic dance and learn more about how I'm cyclical, just like nature goes through spring and summer and fall and winter. And the moon goes through the moon phases. The woman also goes through the seasons. And she not only researched and learned about that, and she's being so humble and modest. She's traveled all over the world and lived in villages and tribes like in Ethiopia and Central America, and like been in the villages with the people, with the women. And not only did she learn about it and experience it, but then she like did it in her modern life. And I thought that was so interesting because I had never seen a working woman. I haven't seen any woman do this, but for her to bring what is so innately tribal into the modern world, I mean, it was just so inspiring to witness.
Oh, thank you.
So
it's been a process because, before we were so civilized, life was a lot slower. We were way more in tune and in touch with Mother Earth. And we as women, we are kind of this parallel embodiment of Mama Earth, because Mama Earth is constantly caring for us, providing for us, just like a mother would, and she becomes full in the summer and then wanes in the winter time. And that is exactly what we're doing, every month in our bodies, whether we end up, going down the road of pregnancy and giving new life. That is still a part of us innately when we bleed and we shed the lining of our uterus each month. That is new life that is being essentially created. And spiritually speaking, that is when we are a clear channel. And so when we are honoring ourselves and getting quiet and getting still, like you would in the winter, or say a new moon where it's dark and internal, that is when we are going to have those moments of clarity. And that's why in these tribes all over the world, through ages and ages, have been doing this, where they go to the woman seeking for her wisdom, because that is when she is channeling it. And usually in tribes, actually, the male was the protector leader and the woman was the wise counselor and spiritual guide of the tribe. Like that's how it worked.
Mm-hmm. And
so it's kind of finding a way. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that makes a lot of sense. So if you think of the masculine energy as the active part that is more the protector, and then the feminine energy, the internal part that is like connected to source. And then when they both work together, it's so great. But if one tries to overcome the other, then it doesn't work.
Exactly.
I think I would love to. I mean, I'm having such a moment here listening to both of your shares and both of your stories. It's such a powerful thing just to be witnessing you in this being, and to know that you're stepping into places where you're really opening up dialogue with other women and partnerships, I'm sure, and really discussing this this tie that we have to this really innate wisdom that our bodies have. This is like a two-parter, I guess. I just wanted to share a piece of my own past. This upcoming February is going to be 3 years that I stopped taking the birth control pill, of which I had been taking for about 9 or 10 years. And the sort of, over the course of the first 8 months after I stopped taking the pill, the innate sort of like this really primal nature connection, this tie to my body that I had never, ever, ever experienced before, started showing itself. And for anyone out there who's listening, who is maybe hearing this for the first time, it's really something to get super curious about. I mean, I never want to encourage someone to do something that they're not feeling is resonant for them in their lives at that time. But if you haven't really thought about this before, and you have maybe been taking some type of contraceptive for a while, and you are looking to adapt something new to your practice, or just experiment with something, there is this sort of awakening that can happen whenever we do start looking at our cycles in this way, and really allowing ourselves to get curious. We don't know what we don't know, and we don't know the sort of feelings that can arise within us if we've never experienced them before. So just speaking from my own experience, that I had never had this sort of primal connection, and now I can feel when my body is ready to release. Like I can feel when I'm about to start my period in the days leading up. It is the most wild, in every sense of the word, feeling that that's why I'm just so excited to have you two on, because this has been one of the most transformative practices that I've implemented into my own spiritual practice, and then having moon blood rituals that we'll talk about later in the episode. But it's just such a powerful practice. And I really just want to acknowledge both of you and really honor both of you for stepping into this work on a bigger stage and using your platform to really open up this dialogue. It's life-changing.
And I thank you for sharing that, Britt. I think what is also so fascinating is that for probably all of us, it all started when we stopped taking birth control, huh? Was that for you too, Ashley?
Kind of.
I tried birth control when I was a teenager for like one cycle, and then I never finished it. I never got on it again. So I don't have very much experience with birth control at all, which is crazy because I felt just as disconnected from being a woman as I think all of you have described, even without taking birth control. And I think that's just from the conditioning of society. I used to think that I was sick when I got my period. I wasn't correlating headaches or feeling tired to my period at all. I'd be like, wow, I'm going to take some vitamin C. I'm getting a cold. Like I just had no connection to my cycle, didn't know anything about it.
And for me, what's interesting, when I came here to America for the first time, I I heard that was for me the first time that I heard about PMS. And we never talked about that in Germany. It was not a thing. But here it's like, oh, I'm PMSing. And since we never talked about it in Germany, it was never a thing for myself. But for other women, I heard it a lot, that almost like an excuse that women would take of like, oh, I'm just PMSing. That's why I am bitchy right now.
Yeah. And one of the things we're really passionate about reframing is our relationship with the premenstrual phase, because it does get such a bad rep. And I think that's because we have no understanding about it. And usually when we don't understand anything, we have judgment toward it. And one of the things I think we really hit on in the blood book, and that we're trying to help bring awareness to, is the beauty of the premenstrual phase, the purpose of the premenstrual phase, and how it actually has a purpose that serves us. And the only reason why it gets such a bad reputation is because we live in a society that doesn't allow us to have the more inwardly focused time that the premenstrual phase invites us to be, more restful, more introspective, less activity. The premenstrual phase invites us to really be on a more receiving frequency. And this patriarchy world we live in is just don't ever slow down. So of course there's a negative connotation when it comes to the premenstrual phase because it's not accepted.
Yeah. And it actually has created, when we are more stressed out, it actually aggravates all symptoms. So even if you were just slightly something, now it's going to be more because you're...
Yeah, cortisol, the stress hormone, if there's cortisol released, throughout your cycle, especially in your ovulation phase, it's going to affect the symptoms of your premenstrual phase. So if we live in a world that's pushing us constantly to be on a men's cycle, a men's rhythm, then those premenstrual symptoms are really exacerbated. Whereas if you honor your cycle and you work with what your body was created to be like, and you honor your inner seasons, the premenstrual symptoms are not like this, actually.
Yeah, they're not nearly as intense, and they're much more understandable and beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's head into those, shall we? I love the mention again of inner seasons. Let's head into that. Can you please explain to us what this cyclical system is?
Yeah. So if a woman is on a 30-day menstrual cycle, so let's just say you bleed every 29 or 30 days, basically that breaks your cycle up into about 4 weeks. And so each week, so you've got about 7 days, that is what we call an inner season. So when you first start bleeding, that is day one of winter. You are dormant. It is time for you to be just quiet and still, like the snow is on the ground. And as you bleed, you start to move towards the end of that winter season, and then you move into your inner spring. This is where, just like the earth, the buds are starting to bloom, baby birds are starting to hatch, like new ideas begin to form within us. We are like inspired and renewed and refreshed and excited about life. And so we move through that season.
And that really follows like our hormones, right? Because in our winter, when we're bleeding, we've got what? Like no estrogen.
Everything is dropped. So no estrogen, no testosterone, and your progesterone has now tanked because it's been rising up until you started bleeding. And we'll go into that when we...
Yeah. And so once you're done bleeding and you start entering that inner spring, your hormones start to come back, which is why you start feeling inspired and invigorated. And it kind of matches like the moon, like your inner winter, your bleed is like the darkness of the moon, the new moon, and you're starting a new cycle. And we're not all synced up with the moon, but there is some speculation and belief that once when we were more connected with nature, maybe women did cycle with the moon more naturally. And there's reasons why we might not be cycling with the moon anymore, but it kind of does match that escalation from dark moon to big, bright full moon.
Yeah. And most history of what you can find about out, everything menstrual and lunar are associated. In fact, the word formations, how we figured out even how to have an original calendar was from the woman's cycle and the moon combined.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of connection there.
Yeah.
So day 1 through 7, inner winter, restful, quiet, bleeding.
Mhm.
Then days like 8 through
14, roughly.
inner spring.
Yeah, your inner spring. And then the day that you ovulate, you've now basically begun your summer and your inner summer. And this is when you are at your height of all energy, all creativity, all love. It's just, we are big in our inner summers.
Because our hormones are so supportive of us in that we have testosterone in our inner summer. It's our highest in our inner summer. That's like right before you ovulate, and you just feel like you can take on the world. And the thing is this season of inner summer, it's usually when we have our desire to want to be sexual is heightened during that time. We feel inspired to work a lot more. We want to go to the gym. We're just on our game. And that is the perception that the world has said is the ideal woman. We should all just be an inner summer woman all year long. And it's just not realistic. And this is why we get so down on ourselves, because we do feel that way, but it's like for a week, maybe 2, your inner spring and your inner summer.
Yeah.
And then when it leaves, we're like, what's wrong with me? What happened? I felt so good last week. I was so inspired. Now I just want to eat ice cream and stay in bed, and I don't want to go to the gym, and I feel like something's wrong with me. And you go on social media and it looks like all the other women. You also feel very beautiful in your inner summer because your hormones support clear skin and like you just look so luscious. And that's because your body's trying to get pregnant. It wants to be attractive so that you can get pregnant. So you're like, I looked so beautiful and now I have pimples and I'm all greasy. And it's like, what happened? And you see all these other women who look amazing. And you might just be comparing yourself to a woman who's in a completely different season than you. And that's something to take into consideration because we all go through all of these phases.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of the difference. We kind of combine a little bit spring and summer together and autumn and winter together because they are definitely, it's the follicular phase and the luteal phase. So they each actually have a name, and those are the kind of combined seasons for them. And, the inner spring, summer is very external, whereas autumn, winter is very more internal. So you've got the light and the dark, you've got the contrast, the yin and the yang, and that's kind of what the balance is. And so then after you ovulate during your summer, you finish out the summer, and then basically around, if you have a normal, 28, 29 day cycle, and when I say normal, by the way, there are all sorts of normals. That's just what most people talk about as the normal 28-day cycle. But there are women who have 22-day cycles and women who have 35-day cycles. So there's a range there. So I just wanted to clarify. But if we're talking about a 28-day cycle around day 21, then you're starting to enter your real luteal phase. This is your inner autumn. And this is where hormones drastically shift. So estrogen and testosterone have pretty much dropped off the map, and you have progesterone that is really starting to climb. And progesterone, the way it works chemically with our brains, it's just interacting with a lot of things in there, and we form this much more critical eye, and we're able to notice everything. We are able to notice all truth. Basically, we are kind of, I don't know if I can say this, but we're like, no bullshit at all gets past us, we just see through it all. And our filter kind of goes away. So we say it like it is. And this is where the PMS phase gets a bad rap because we're just like saying it, we're calling it how we see it,
And that progesterone is the hormone that you have when you're pregnant. And you think about like a mama bear who is just like, she's going to protect her baby. Like she is so detail oriented and critical because she is on alert because she is carrying a baby.
Yes.
So she in nature is on high alert to protect that baby. Progesterone's that same hormone we have when we're pregnant, and we have it in our premenstrual phase. That's why we're on high alert. And that each of these seasons has their strengths. And what we have not been taught is how to be what we are in each season. So in inner winter, we're bleeding. It's like you're bleeding. Your body is not supporting you in being active. It is shedding. So lay down and allow yourself to shed. In spring and summer, all of your hormones are rising. This is the time to plan, to get stuff done, to be social, to host dinner nights, to have friends and family over. You are like on top of the world. If you know this about yourself, when you get to your premenstrual phase, you know that your hormones are not supportive of social interaction because you are highly critical. You know that you are not feeling like in your heightened physical activity. So maybe like holding yourself accountable to doing a marathon and running and going to the gym is just a really unrealistic expectation to hold yourself accountable to. And maybe it's a time to do more yin yoga and more restorative, gentle things that nourish yourself instead of pushing yourself to be something you're not. And that's like the whole point of knowing your inner seasons, is because if you know your hormones, if you know which day you're on, you can start to plan and map your life around that instead of fighting against it.
Yes, exactly. And actually, I just want to touch on something that you just mentioned. I forgot her name. I just discovered her recently, but she's an athlete who's been testing women because there's virtually like no testing done. All athletic, everything has basically been based off men. And she's a scientist and an athlete. And so she's been doing these studies recently because she noticed for herself that when she was in her follicular phase, her times, her scores, everything was like phenomenal. And then she would test again in her premenstrual phase and they were significantly slower. And she felt like crap doing them. She was like, I was great for the first 10 minutes and the next hour I was dying and I just wanted to be done. And so she's started to like back that scientifically as well, of just that difference that she was sharing. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing all of this. I love how you like edit all the hormones and really allow that scientific side to come into it too, because we spiritually and intuitively know about the cycle when we start tuning into it. But then having like the ever masculine scientific side to it is like, here's the proof, this is real stuff, just adds to it all. And as soon as we combine intuition and intellect, it's just such a powerful ritual. Literally, it's a ritual of our life. With, when we connect to our moon cycles. I have one little question, because you've been talking about the premenstrual phase, the inner autumn, and I like to with the moon cycles. I like to see the new moon is the winter, the first quarter, the spring, full moon is summer, and then last quarter is autumn. And so, like new moon is like we're planting the seed. First quarter is when it sprouts, full moon is when it blossoms, and then last quarter is when we can like harvest the fruit. So what I've noticed from just living with the moon cycle is that whatever I put in during new moon is what I basically get out as a harvest during last quarter. Is that something that you found out like with the PMS phase or the premenstrual phase as well?
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely. So spring and summer is like when we're like going for our goals. And it's really interesting you bring this up, because we work from home. We work together and our husbands work with us. And we've structured our entire business around Leanna and my cycle. So we push really hard in our spring and summer because our hormones support it. And we do all the hard things during that time, like that take physical activity and like us moving around a lot, or, working till later at night. And then when we get to the autumn, it's like the harvest, because we have the critical eye. That's the time where we edit, where we do the emails, we clean it all up, we deliver the projects, we finish. And it's in a more restful, detail-oriented, final cleanup, last look. Whereas when we're in our spring and summer, it's like the maximum effort toward creating. And then in the inner autumn, it's like the fine details and the cleaning up. Just like you said, harvest. Like go finally pick it out and harvest it. It's kind of how we exactly do
It
our
is.
workload.
It's the exact same.
I love that you like sync up your cycles and like become aware of like how to work with that together. Like Brit, we have to do this now.
Wow. Yeah. I'm rethinking so much of my own stuff. I'm like, wow, I wonder if this is really going to shift a lot for me, because there can be, as you're, an entrepreneur and trying to start up, like for myself, at least starting up this business that I'm creating, and through the month, just sometimes feeling so exhausted, and just like, I totally allow myself the time to disappear, but at the same time, it makes me feel irresponsible. It makes me feel like there's not enough time sometimes, because things get pushed back. And I just think this could be a really, really beautiful piece of allowing myself like a really natural strategy as far as approaching business.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
It is life-changing, and what we've noticed is that we're so much more productive. We actually get more done when we work hard in just those 2 weeks than when we try to work like the whole month long, because we do take our periods off for like a couple days. And in the premenstrual phase, I would say we work like 30%. Whereas in our spring and summer, we're like 110.
Yeah, exactly.
120.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in autumn, it's like 30%. But everything gets done. And we found that it just, anytime we fall lax on that and we go back to a more masculine work the entire cycle, we're not as productive. It doesn't work out. We are exhausted. We are spinning our wheels.
Symptoms are worse. More like disagreements with our partners happen. It's just everything gets intensified.
Yeah. So honoring the cycle for us is working around our cycles in our productivity, and also in our personal life, and also in our relationship.
Yeah, I'm really curious to touch on how you've integrated this into your partnerships. I just had one quick question about the cycle lengths, because we've heard a few different theories about this, Hannah and I, where some people say that your body releases whenever energetically it feels safe to, or whenever like if we're really stressed, we have maybe a longer cycle. I know for myself, 34 days is really regular. And for my sister, 20 or 22 days is regular. And she always thinks that something's wrong with her. And I've totally relaxed into having a 34-day cycle. It's never bothered me. But I'm really curious to know if either of you have any sort of science, or what are your personal theories on the cycle lengths?
Well, on the cycle lengths themselves, if you have a fairly regular 22-day cycle or a fairly regular 34-day cycle, mine's generally like a 32-day cycle. Everything's pretty much fine. That is just our uniqueness and differences as women. I mean, we do all have a little bit of differences. We're tall, we're short, we're all different sizes and all different looks, and that's our cycle is kind of that unique part in us,
and different amounts of hormone levels, which you can use Ayurvedic seed cycling, which we have explained in our book, to start to balance out your hormones to make them more regular
for yourself.
For yourself by eating certain seeds during certain hormonal phases. But
but in terms of like if you've got some major stresses or things that are coming up for you in the month, that will throw off your cycle to either start early or late. It can actually create both. And so that is something to be aware of. Usually, it really affects us a lot if you experience those stresses in the pre-ovulation phase. Because if you ovulate later, then it's going to throw it longer.
Yeah, your ovulation's what's late. Yes. And then it throws off your whole cycle.
The whole cycle, the period.
And it's just something to be aware of, because when you start to work with your seasons, you avoid throwing off your cycle, because you're not pushing yourself in the not hormone supportive season. So pushing yourselves in the not hormonal supportive season is usually what creates this. And it just is like this crazy continuous cycle, because you'll see it come out in like the arguments with your partner, like you had mentioned before. And it's honoring your cycle changes everything.
It really is. Yeah. So did that kind of answer your question? I mean, the stress and not feeling safe, that does throw off our periods more often than not. And that will create an irregular cycle. And the seed cycling is mostly for women who have constantly irregular cycles.
Yeah. Like if you're finding that irregular, you're not starting time, the seed cycling is really going to help. And I do want to say, feeling safe to have your period. I've seen this with Leanna so much because we have taken a lot of big trips together and things like this. And her body will literally wait until she gets home and just be like, I can't bleed yet because I'm traveling, or I can't bleed yet because this big project is due, or whatever, something like this. Like finishing the book, for example, the day we published this book, Leanna started bleeding right after, and she was super late because she was stressed on finishing the book. And as soon as it published, body started bleeding, and we were like, perfect. Yay. The blood book is published, and now Leanna can bleed. And it's so true because your body's so intuitive, and that's your body inviting you to rest. It knows you need to rest. And if you psychologically know you can't rest, that's why it's holding off.
Exactly.
I think it's so fascinating. I've been kind of like cycling with the new moon for a while, and now it's shifted that I am now regularly bleeding on the last quarter moon. So it's really fascinating because what I felt like is that it's almost like the bleed, and what I almost like to bleed on things. So when there's like a problem in my life, or where I'm like struggling and I'm not really sure like how to get the solution, I'm like, I just bleed on that. Instead of like I wait on it or sleep over it, I'm like, I bleed on this. And so
that's awesome. We love that.
So my theory is, and I'm still in the process of testing this out, is that depending on what moon phase we're bleeding on, this is something that we are really meant to connect with, that there's something there in that moon phase that we're really meant to like explore more and learn more about and go deeper into that moon phase. So is that something that you feel like has been going on in your life?
We actually talk about bleeding on it in our book.
Yes.
It's very essential.
Yeah. And
Perfect.
I do totally agree that it's really cool to track the moon with your cycle, and yes, pay attention to what moon phase you're bleeding on, and look into, we have a moon app. It's called Deluxe Moon that we use, and just checking like what's going on with the moon on this day, what's it inviting me to look into, and using that as kind of a point of meditation, reflection, and journaling, because it's definitely all connected.
So beautiful.
Beautiful. Awesome. Jeez. Well, thank you. And now can we transition to how you've integrated this into your partnerships?
Yes. It's like the best thing ever, actually. Having my partner understand me has literally eliminated 80% of our arguments. And not that we argued a lot to begin with, but like 80% are like gone now, just because he understands me, my cycle. He knows exactly what days I am more sensitive, and that he should be extra sweet and extra kind and do nice things for me. And that goes a really long way, you know? And I have the awareness. This is what I've been working on for years now, is knowing that when I'm in my premenstrual phase and my progesterone is running high and it's interacting with my amygdala and making me feel like there could be a crisis at any moment, that is when I'm able to stay more grounded and centered because of my practices that I have. But it's also the same time where I see everything with that, like fine-tooth comb. So it's this mixture of, like, I mean, I'll see all the things that are going on with my partner, and I'm be like, oh, okay, well, Joe's not doing this. My husband's name is Joe. And he's like, oh, okay, he's not doing that. And wow, that was rude. And, and I'll just notice all these things, and it gives me opportunity to actually do my deepest inner work during this phase. And because that is really the only season of the whole month that we have challenges. My whole inner season of the whole month that we have challenges, And so it's really allowed us to have a much deeper connection, because he then knows when to take me out, like socially, and he knows when to say, hey, let's have a stay at home kind of romantic evening. And it just is, it's changed a lot for me with my partner. And I think we get along a whole lot better. And when we do have things come up in our relationship, we're just more aware, because it usually always happens in the inner autumn phase. And it's like, okay, well, right now I'm actually on day 29. I am way more sensitive. And so he has a lot more grace and compassion with me, because he knows and understands that this is where I'm at. And I have that understanding of myself to be like, hey, I know I'm really sensitive right now. This is what I'm feeling. I do want to express this one thing, but generally speaking, if it's a big thing that I still feel triggered by, I write it down and then bleed on it and then talk to him about it after I've bled. And I am more centered and grounded just naturally, without like the effort of having to be like, okay, I'm grounded,
Yeah, and for me, I feel like Matthew knowing what day I am on has allowed for more grace in his expectations of me and our relationship. Matthew is a very productive, motivated person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest aha moment for us was him realizing that, that woman that he thinks I am, that can do it all, she is there, but only in specific seasons, like my inner spring and my inner summer. And to have more grace and compassion for me in my inner autumn, and allow me to be what I am, allow me to be more restful.
Mm-hmm.
He does do things like in winter, like help prepare food and just help clean, and doesn't expect me to do everything that I do in my spring and summer. And I allow myself to be more receiving. And that has really strengthened our relationship, because I practice receiving, which I've had a really hard time doing, because I'm just like, I'll do everything myself.
Mm-hmm.
And allowing myself to be more receiving of him cooking or doing something nice for me. It's really changed the dynamic a lot. So, yeah.
I love that. And I love that you call it inner seasons, and how you call it inner spring, summer, winter, autumn, because I feel like it actually helps also men that are outside of it all to understand it better. Like I talk to my partner about, hey, I'm bleeding, or hey, I'm ovulating, but it's like, what does that mean? For him, it's like,
What does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah. But if I like start saying to him, hi, I'm in my inner winter right now, or I'm in my inner summer, I feel like that in itself, just the wording, is already gonna help others to understand it on a deeper level. So I love that. So my question is, do you have a calendar where you like show where you at, or like how does your partner know?
Both of our partners keep their own calendars and have synced up with our cycles. So yeah, they've just programmed it into their calendars.
Yeah, like on your phone, on your Google Calendar, you can highlight which seasons in advance. You can block it off so that it's like she's on day 3, 4, 5, inner spring, like you can put the calendar reminder there.
Mm-hmm.
And that also is a great way to track naturally for pregnancy. So you don't have to be on birth control. And also it's just really nice, like Leanna said, like them knowing in advance where we are, so they don't plan things that we're like not going to be up to doing, because they know in advance we're going to be on our period, or we're going to be in our premenstrual phase, and we're probably not going to want to do that thing. It's really nice and really helpful and very sweet that our men are aware of our cycle, because they are our partners. They are with us, and this is an innate, important part of us that for them to take the time to understand is such a testimony of like their commitment to being in the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also just having it be, it really has made, my relationship has just mellowed out in so many ways because of this mutual understanding. Because I think you kind of mentioned this, but it removes the expectation that we're supposed to be one way all the time.
Right. Like if you're laying in bed, sleeping a lot more in your premenstrual or on your period, or kind of being quote unquote what the world would consider lazy, now they're not like, what's wrong with you? What's going on? They're like, okay, you're resting. Is there anything I can get for you? In the book, you can see we have the hormone diagram, very linear for men to see your hormones are different during those phases, and you are basically gas tank empty. So they are like, okay, your gas tank is empty. They can see the hormone chart and they're like, these days you're empty. So asking you to do any more than is literally necessary would be kind of rude. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And also we have a part in the book where our husbands wrote two men how they've appreciated learning this information about us and how they interpret it. And they both very different in what they do, how it's improved their lives, and in what way this has changed the relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, we felt it was important for men to talk to men, because obviously if, you're a woman and you're in a partnership with another woman, it's easy. You just read the woman part, you get that part. But like men, I think a lot of times, I think some men are going to be interested in reading the whole book, but I think a lot of men, they're just going to want to get it from another guy who is saying it in their language. And I think both of our partners did a really great job at writing their little section to men to help men be like, oh, okay, I got this. I can do this,
Yeah. And also like letting men know the sacredness of the moon blood. And I feel like, a lot of that has been kind of lost in society, where we, just as we were talking about, we need to hide our blood. We, use tampons, so we don't really see it. We don't really are in connection with it. And sometimes we can even take pills to just not have it at all, or, use certain birth controls to just not have our period at all. And now I can't even imagine doing that anymore. Like, imagine just not bleeding. Like, I remember when I had my daughter, and then I didn't bleed for like over a year. And I was like, at this point, I'm like, I miss it. I miss my sacred moon blood. And I was never at that place before. Like, but usually I was like, oh, I'm going to start my period. That sucks. But now I'm like, oh, like, what can I bleed on? How can I release this? And now I really would love for us to talk about some rituals that you like to do with your moon blood.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Do you want to say one first?
Well, I live in a hale, so it's like a Hawaiian jungle bungalow, basically, and it's very indoor-outdoor. It's like not a lot of walls, lots of screens, and like outdoor shower and all of this, outdoor compost toilet. So we have like a tropical garden nearby the outdoor toilet, and I use a diva cup, I use a menstrual cup, and I offer my blood to the plants. The blood is like a natural fertilizer, first of all, for the plants, but it's also kind of like releasing whatever it is I'm releasing that month and giving it back to the earth with the intention of like those new intentions for the new cycle of what I'm intending for that cycle. That's a very vulnerable one to share, but
that's a powerful one, because I do the same thing. I offer my blood back to the earth. I love menstrual cups because they actually are very easy to do this, because you have like an actual cup of blood that you're giving back as an offering. But it's kind of my moment to, also releasing, but kind of to just be like, I feel at one with the earth when I'm doing this practice, and I feel my full connection, I guess, coming full circle of like the earth gives to me and now I'm giving back to the earth. And as I release this creates new life to enter into my life. And so it's this circular process that I'm honoring and feeling super grateful for. So that's a big one.
Yeah. And then besides like the offering of your blood as like a more like an offering, a gift, taking care of ourselves becomes like utmost priority. And for days 1 and day 2, we try our best to allow ourselves to be down and like, release all obligations if it's possible. It's not possible for every woman, but we're fortunate to have that ability. And we allow ourselves to rest. We take, sacred baths with crystals and incense and oils, and we journal and set our intentions and release whatever we're releasing. And we try to make the room feel as sacred as we can for us to rest in. And it just becomes this like very spirit woman time.
Yeah, my whole room becomes a sanctuary.
Yeah.
I mean, candles are lit, and I am acknowledging and appreciating myself for being a woman in every sense of the word. And by journaling and sitting with my crystals or drinking herbal teas, because there's a lot of teas that not only aid you in your menstrual cycle and maybe the symptoms that you're feeling, but plants are such beautiful like energies as well. So it's like taking that in to just honor ourselves. And we don't do yoni steams during our bleeds. We do that normally in the spring, but that's another ceremony thing that we do just to kind of like honor ourselves and cleanse and renew.
So whatever you can do to make your bleed an intentional time of connection to the divine.
Yes.
As it's personal, but just, and if you are somebody who works, it doesn't need to be this whole elaborate day. It could just be something you do in the morning or the evening for yourself, like drinking cacao and like, putting your hands over it and setting the intention with the cacao, whatever it is, just making it more of a mindful experience than something you just try to move on from.
And move through. Exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing those practices. Since starting to work with my moon blood, I think it was new moon in Sagittarius last year. And something that has been really transformative for me has been creating art with it. And I know a lot of women who sort of draw a line in the sand that say like, I'm down with doing, plants, feeding my plants with my moon blood and stuff, but doing things with my moon blood or painting myself with it or something like that is drawing the line, which is certainly a different level of depth, I feel like, for people to actually touch it or to actually, be looking at it or be actively doing things with it. As a huge wound of mine that I've been working on for the last few years has been connecting with my creativity and my ability to create. I was definitely raised with a program that certain people are born with certain abilities or capabilities, and that I wasn't one of those people, and it's okay that you're not good at that. You don't need to ever try doing it again. And growing up with this, I had a huge disconnect with anything that had to do with creativity, being able to let myself paint or let myself channel songs. Now I'm a song channeler, and Ash has actually had a really big piece in my ability to step into that as well. But really, I love how you worded that, really mindfully connecting in the way that feels resonant for you, and finding what that looks like and giving yourself time and space and curiosity that says like, what is it that I'm working on right now? What is it that my past looks like? How can I find a practice that will serve me and actually serve my growth? I feel like sometimes in the spiritual community, we can listen to other people's super transformative stories and just like want that same type of transformative story to be applied to our life. And then it can sometimes take us a while of trying that other person's super transformative practice to realize that maybe that's theirs, and maybe we can find our own and see what that looks like. And it might be super different.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Everything about our blood is truly sacred. And, we can even use our blood as like blessings that we give to certain things. And you just kind of reminded me of this as you were sharing that, like, you can take, if you don't want to draw with it or paint with it, you can still take it and put it on your altar and place it with something that is like an intention that you want to bless. Because it is really sacred energy that is in our blood. And that's why plants, think about it. Plants are these, like, I almost like look at them like as these innocent, beautiful auras that like bless our life, and they thrive on our blood when we bless them. I swear every plant that I have given my blood to is like, oh, it's like the best plant ever. And its growth is amazing, and its colors are more vibrant, and it's been just I guess what's the word I want? Just like a example to me that what we give our blood to is going to be blessed. And so I think you can even take that for anything that you want to set that intention as you're bleeding and being intentional. You can be like, hey, I bless this right now with my blood. And actually, in some cultures, I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of women in ancient cultures, actually, when they would have a baby, for example, they would eat the placenta afterwards to regain their strength. And the same thing with menstrual blood. There's many cultures over the ages that have drank their menstrual blood because it's like a re-blessing. And obviously that's another level that, not everybody's going to be comfortable with. But
you can put it in your smoothies.
You can put it in a smoothie, and then you don't have to taste it necessarily. But yeah, that's another level. And it's not that I have before. Yeah, I have
him, but Leanna told me all about it.
Yeah, I have. Just because I wanted to get comfortable. I mean, it's a part of us. No, it doesn't. And it, in a certain way, it can be very restorative, and it just all depends on really what your intention is.
I've heard that it awakens your more psychic abilities and all of that. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. I just in my last blood cycle, in my last inner winter, I did a ritual for the first time, and with my blood doing a sigil, and then I licked up my finger with what I painted it with. And it was so sacred, and it was my very first time tasting my own blood. And it actually tastes good. Like, it's not even like something, oh, that's disgusting. It doesn't like taste bad or anything. And I also read that it's the cleanest blood. Like, the menstrual blood is the cleanest blood, like even cleaner than if we just take blood out of our body from other wounds. Like, the menstrual blood is.
Yeah, I have heard that as well.
Mm-hmm. One thing that's coming to mind is that menstrual blood is like the Holy Grail, or it's known as the Holy Grail. And one of the powers of women is like, in the past, in like ancient traditions, was that a woman being with a man intimately on her period was her allowing him to have access to the Holy Grail. And that, only a man who could get that access to being with a woman for the Holy Grail was being so like enormously blessed in so many ways, because she's allowing him to have access to her yoni during menstruation and accessing the Holy Grail that like awakens your consciousness, basically. So it's interesting.
It is.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, so you can also be intimate on your bleed and explore that with your partner if that's something you and your partner are interested in exploring, is having, that could be part of your ceremony as well. Yeah.
And so I would love to add for any of our listeners who may be hearing anything that's been mentioned on this podcast and really feeling a strong aversion to it, to really remember that, write it down in some way, shape, or form, catalog it, and go to allow yourself to sit with that and really question what it is about that brings up strong aversion. Is it a story that comes from your past? Is it something that you were taught? Usually I find that those things that I'm really triggered by or have really strong aversions to, they're the deepest and most potent medicine. Like, even for me just now, whenever you said about being intimate on your bleed, I was like, wow, there was like this aversion to it. Like, oh, I can't do that. Or, oh, that doesn't feel natural, or something like that. So I'm saying this as like a little catalog for myself to go and sit with and be like, wow, where did that stem from? What is that about? Because this can be so transformative for partnerships, I'm sure. And I'm sure you two are experiencing this with the recent publication of the book. That was going to be one of my questions earlier. Have you really been hearing back from a ton of partnerships that are saying like, we just took our relationship to an entirely new level.
Yeah, we have had feedback.
Yeah, pretty much everybody who is reading the book, it's like their first time ever hearing this. And I have not heard yet anybody saying my partner wasn't interested. Everybody is like, and my partner's on board, and I'm amazed. And I think it's because everything about learning your cycle benefits your life and benefits your partnership.
Everyone in your life. Yeah. I just had a thought, but it just went away.
Yeah, the feedback has definitely been, it's there. I think the women are surprised to see how open their partners have been to exploring this. And I think it's because just men are so logical and rational. I think that they understand that learning this information is only going to benefit their strategy with their woman.
Yeah. And I just remembered what I wanted to say. Most men are like, women are so complicated. We don't understand them. Here's a manual. Here is a manual for understanding how a woman is. Like,
yes.
Literally.
And they're all like, yes, give me that right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the most surprising for everybody reading the book is how supportive their partners have been. And I have had women send like videos and photos of their boyfriends and husbands bringing them food or taking care of them and being like, look, he's so sweet. And just that they're totally willing. They're totally willing.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's beautiful. I'd love to also touch on like women who aren't bleeding. So either who aren't bleeding anymore or who aren't bleeding as of right now. Are they going through those similar cycles as well, even though they're not bleeding?
Yes, but differently. So obviously a young girl who hasn't started menstruation yet, her hormones, they haven't started fluctuating as much. But once a woman goes into, she either stops bleeding during, maybe after a pregnancy, or she stops bleeding because of menopause, that's where we really want to encourage women to tap into the cycles of the moon, because the moon has such an influence over us, and we are still we're very affected by her and cycling with her. So that's where we kind of encourage that. But honestly, in terms of like scientific research, there's been very little done for women who aren't bleeding to understand, what is actually happening hormonally for them. But we're still very influenced by the moon.
Yeah, and we're innately cyclical.
Yes.
We are the feminine. We are innately cyclical, whether the period shows up or not.
Exactly.
And finding a way that works for you to honor your cyclical nature is beautiful in whatever way that is for you. Like my mom had her hysterectomy when she was in her mid-20s. I mean, she had me at 19 and then had a hysterectomy. So she doesn't have a connection to her period at all, didn't ever really have a connection to it, and is just now in her late 50s tapping into what it means for her to honor a cycle of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, she's using the moon. But it's really beautiful because even though she hasn't had a period in so many years, she's like, I feel deeply connected to this. I know that I go through cycles of emotions every month. I know this is true. And I think we all can feel that. So we are innately cyclical. And so whatever way feels good for you, whether that's tracking your emotions on with the moon calendar, or maybe it's not even the moon, it's just tracking how you feel from day to day and seeing if there's any pattern that correlates for you, like knowing that you feel anxious at the beginning of the month and tired at the end of the month, or whatever that is for you. Just knowing how you feel and taking document of that, I think, is just powerful for us as women.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But
Discovering the pattern that lies within each of us is extremely empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you're aware, it sets the stage for you to not only understand yourself on an incredibly deep level, but then you have a map to do your own inner work, to heal the things that haven't been looked at necessarily. And now you're getting that chance to, because these patterns show up for us in ways that are like clear as day. Okay, here it is. This is what's in your life.
Yeah, I want to say what you're saying, Leanna, that we are cyclical. That means that we are patterned. We have patterns. Our cycle is patterns. It's a map to the patterns. That's what it means to be cyclical, is to realize that it's a pattern, just like the moon is a pattern, just like the earth has a pattern in all of nature. I mean, I cut open a breadfruit the other day and there was this pattern of sacred geometry inside the breadfruit. It's like everything is a pattern. And we, being cyclical, another word for that is just we have a pattern. And so we're learning our own rhythm, our own pattern by tracking our cycle.
Yeah, it's like an algorithm that we have as a computer.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I love that. Was there something that you wanted to say, Brittany, about?
Yeah, I was really curious to open up on it. I'm also very curious to really actively start tracking my cycles, because when I knew that we were going to be having an interview with you, one of my very first questions was, well, I have to ask them why I feel so energetic on the first day of my bleed. So my question initially before we had this conversation was, are we able to find where the cyclical season or the wheel lands on us for our cycle? But with so much of the conversation around the hormonal aspects being triggered at different periods in the cycle, for me, I'm just really curious to dive into my own cycle and really actively track, instead of, in the moments that I'm feeling super energetic and I'm like, woohoo, like I've attached this program that says I feel really, really active whenever I'm on the first day of my cycle.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we're all these unique beings, but I actually get a burst of energy on the first half of the day. When I first start bleeding, I am like incredibly energetic for the first half of the day.
And I would say because physically, hormonally, it's not supportive of physical energy. What if that burst of energy is a more feminine burst of energy that can be expressed through inspiration and project planning and art and creativity, rather than more masculine doing? Because that burst of energy that you're getting is the release. It's the release through your blood, and it's the feminine it's the feminine energy that it's being ignited. You have been in the follicular phase, you have been in the testosterone and all this stuff, and now you are like full blown in the luteal phase of like feminine. In that burst of energy, what if it's a different expression than we're used to thinking about that burst of energy? And to channel it in a way that's supportive of being in that phase.
Yeah, I really
Make
love
art.
that aspect that you just brought to it. I think sometimes when we think of systems, we can get really, really attached to the boundaries and the confines and the rules of what that system says that it is. And then people can just kind of just apply the rules to their life without actually feeling it. And it's sort of just stepping into another program that we think is the truth and that we accept as the truth, and start to adapt our lives to make it be the truth. And I really love having this piece of our conversation that says, always keep your eyes open to the dynamicism and the complexity that we're able to experience within our own selves, and really asking questions and not being afraid to ask questions, and it being like wrong or you being like broken or something like that if you don't match up.
Talking about match up, do you are your cycles synced up together?
We have synced up many times, and then we've also gotten off, like when life happens. Right now, I think we're in the process of syncing up again right now.
It might happen.
It might happen.
This cycle.
Yeah. But that is very common for women especially women who live together or who spend a lot of time together, to sync up and bleed at the same time. And, in the past, that I think was part of our design, is to bleed and ovulate together. Because back in the day when we were more tribal, the men would actually go off and they would like go do their thing hunting, and then they would come back at a certain time to the tribe. So it's like the women kind of all had to be ovulating together if they were ever going to get pregnant. And then also they could all go bleed together, which was very special because only the humans who bleed are the people that we're going to just have this understanding of each other, unlike the humans who don't bleed. And there's no way that we could ever explain to someone who's never going to bleed, okay, this is what it's like, because their body isn't going through that same process and secular nature. So
yes, and I love how like connecting to the moon cycle really connects us with our tribal nature as well, and that is so much about the age of Aquarius that we're entering. Is Aquarius is that community, the collective, and really going back to our tribal roots and reconnecting with that. And just while you were talking, I'm like, that sounds so much fun, like just bleeding with women together and going back to the red tents and like knowing each other's cycles and just really living in sync with ourselves, our feminine. And I feel like now that we are in this Aquarian age, now it's more about finding that tribal nature through technology. And this is why we can do all these things here as well, through the podcast, and we can connect online and connect with our tribe on a different level, even though we don't have those tribal settings as much anymore in like physical reality, but we can still like mentally and emotionally connect.
Exactly.
Yeah, we do definitely encourage, the readers of the book and everyone listening to this podcast recording to open up the dialogue with the women that you're close to in your life about your cycle, and share what you've learned with them, and also have that tribal support of the women in your life where you can tell them like, I'm on day 28 and I'm not feeling too hot, and have someone to talk to about it, or sharing what you do, the inspirations you get when you bleed, and just opening up a dialogue, because how many of us talked about any of this up until this point? Like, we had nobody to talk to about it. I mean, I didn't even talk to my own mom about it. So it's definitely a new opportunity to get vulnerable with the women in your life that you love.
Yeah. And another thing that I would love to, I think as we begin this dialogue as women and really make it a normal thing to talk about, we're also going to open up the doors to embracing as a society, both men and women, the wisdom that we actually have within us. We are these wisdom keepers. And if all of society is on board and being like, oh my gosh, I actually get it now. Like, women have this sacred thing that happens to them every single month, and they've got wisdom downloads that if I am, like in tune with, I can receive too. So the male species can get that from us. And someday I hope that dialogue has happened and it's become so comfortable that we are able to share. That is one of our greatest gifts, and we have that to share with the world. Men have shared many, many gifts, and we are very aware of most of those already. But the woman gift is really only getting re-tapped into.
Yes, and I love how, men have the history and women have the mystery.
Yes, exactly.
And so I really love how you just both basically kind of gave an action guides for our audience, because this is always what we do at the end of each episode. We're like, hey, let's do an action guide. What is that something that you can use and actually bring that magic into the mundane, into your everyday life? And I love how you just both were saying, start a conversation with other women in your tribe, and then also start a conversation with men. So helping them to understand more about these cycles. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we're really curious if for all of our interviewees in season 2, we would love to ask you both a question or two. So I feel like we've covered it a lot, but what does sacred mean to you?
Do you want to go first?
For me, I feel like I interpret sacred the same way I interpret devotion. And it's making any aspect of life a devotional process. And that devotion could be equated to mindfulness or being intentional or being present. But when we label something as sacred, it means we show up to it with utmost devotion, utmost intention, utmost presence. And making our cycle something sacred means that it's something worth being devoted to, something worth having presence with. That's what it means for me.
Yeah, I love that. And agree wholeheartedly with that. And for me, it really is the same as that. But I also feel that sacred is parallel with miraculous. It is parallel to that deep mystery of the spark of life. It is the same power that births stars in the universe. It is the same power that creates a baby. And it is miraculous and powerful. And so for us to be so present with that we can tangibly feel that vibration and tune into it, because we are honoring the sacred. We are honoring the miraculous. And I think when we do that, that enhances our entire life experience.
Mm-hmm. It was beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Wow.
It's a good question. Thanks for
That was a really good
great question.
Yeah, so our podcast is called Sacred Sister. So we like to, talk about that with everybody. So like, what does sacred mean to you? And then also, what does it mean for you to have a sacred sister?
Oh, wow.
Wow. For me, I didn't really understand what it meant to have a sisterhood with any other woman other than obviously my own blood of sister, but like with friendships and sisters that you discover over the course of your life. I didn't really understand what that meant until a little later in my life. And for me, having sacred sisters in my life it's one of the most healing and profound experiences, because here you have another human being who has empathy, intuition, and love to share with you in understanding that you cannot with the other species, the masculine. It's very different. It's not that you can't share those things, but it's just very different. And to have somebody who innately understands you and you can continue to deepen that bond through the shared experiences of what it means to be woman. It's really hard to actually answer this question because it's so deep, it's so profound that I feel like almost the words can't fully express and describe it because it is that special.
For me, having a sacred sister is healing a wound.
Mm-hmm.
Because my relationship with friends, women, my mother, not understanding how to have a healthy relationship with women that felt supportive and not competitive, that felt true and genuine and not false and like a facade, is a very deep wound for me. And I feel like a lot of women.
Mm-hmm.
And having a sacred sister to me is being vulnerable enough to touch that wound and be willing to heal it. And it's very uncomfortable at times because I feel immense resistance to that. But every time I allow myself to lean into that very uncomfortable space of vulnerability and connection to another woman, I feel healing. And that, I think, is what Sacred Sister is to me. It's healing a very deep wound.
I love that. And I just want to say, part of being a woman is being vulnerable. And yeah, being vulnerable and just willing to go there and open up. And I think what you said is so, it's actually a very common thing, I think, for a lot of women to have angst and not know how to connect. And there's a lot of theories of this, actually. The witch trials that happened a long time ago that spanned over hundreds of years, and millions of women had to turn against each other as they were being interrogated. That's a nice way of putting it. I think over that span of centuries, developed a coping mechanism in order to live and survive. And we forgot what it was like to have that special sacred connection with women because we were forced to turn against each other. And so now we're in this special time where it is about healing the wound. It is about finding ways to see our sisters as another extension of ourselves, and to understand that the bond that we can have with them can just pass through and break through all barriers that exist on the planet right now. And so it's a very, very special thing to have and extremely healing.
Oh my gosh, I got all the goosebumps. So cute.
My eyes were filled with tears that entire time. We had no idea that was going to be such a potent thing, but just hearing both of your responses, I was just sitting back here and just really feeling so grateful to connect with and have this history with Ash too, with these women that are feeling the same magnitude within that word that we feel, which is why we named this the Sacred Sister podcast, because we feel so similarly of the depth of just indescribable sacredness that women have whenever they come together and share within themselves, and how deep the healing is, and how we are healing all of those that have come before us. This is the most powerful, potent, magic work that we could be doing for the future, for our future daughters, our future granddaughters, and all that we come in contact with. And it is just from the very bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining us and for carving time out to have this conversation with us this afternoon. We cannot express.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been very special connecting with the both of you. Very, very special. And I know for me personally, I know we both do, but I feel very honored to have gotten to meet you and have this dialogue.
Absolutely. I love you both.
Yeah, me too.
Love you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And can you please also, before departing, let everyone know what's going on for you, where they can find you, if you have anything upcoming that they can look into?
Yeah, so our Instagram handle is Spirit Woman Sisterhood. And we have the blood book available on Amazon. And you can go on to our Instagram to find that, or go to our website, spiritwoman.co. And also, we're filming a course right now. We're going through each of the inner seasons. So the first course that will be released is about your inner winter. So stay tuned for that. We're really excited to support you all in honoring your cycles. So we will have a online course that goes hand in hand with the book very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. We're excited to see that. Is there anything you want to say, Britt?
Oh, I just wanted to have a final closing moment of thanking both of you for carving time out from your day, for being with us, for speaking with anybody who comes across this in the future. And we hope that both of you have a really great rest of your evenings, and we look forward to connecting in the future.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Us too. Thank you so much.
Hello, beloved. Now that the episode has ended, we hope that you are leaving here feeling inspired and so excited to check out the Blood Book. And one of you who entered the Instagram giveaway is about to receive a free copy. So we hosted that flash giveaway on Instagram, and I have just done the drawing. And the winner is Linnea Mystical Movement. So I only knew one or two of the entrants of everybody that entered the flash giveaway online, and Sage is a dear sacred sister of mine. Of the one or two people that I knew, she was one of them, and I've taken movement workshops with her. She has helped me feel deeply into my body and get comfortable moving my body, coming back to dance, and I just, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you won, Sage. Sage, please contact us and we will have the Blood Book shipped out to you. Thank you so much for everyone who entered, and we still encourage you. This book of so much wisdom. Check it out.